Hello, cats and kittens. Orewa Jose, Yoroshiku. We're back in the creative corner, in the crisis corner. And I'm here with my man, Dre DaBrute. Hey, what's up, Jay?
What's up? What's up? What's up?
Hey. So we're in the creative corner and we're doing this, something that I basically cooked up here, the 5 creative questions.
Okay.
So I'm going to get as many guests on as I can and just talk about the creative process, because
Cool.
the creative corner is about fellow creatives
Absolutely.
and what you go through to craft, to perfect your craft and so forth.
You said it.
So my first question to you, Dre,
All right.
what are you currently creating?
Okay. That question isn't broad enough. What I'm currently creating is as I've mentioned before, as I've been on your Crisis Corner before, a comic series called TREBLE, The Rhythm Within. We've discussed it several times. I'm currently in the midst of dropping issue number 2. Hopefully that will be done by the end of next week, so that will be awesome. Also, I'm actually doing another repass on issues 3 through 8. Basically, even though the story is pretty much solid and it's already been put in stone, I wanted to more or less put another polish on it, as it were. Like maybe some things that I did creatively a couple years ago when I wrote it. Maybe it could be some things that could be improved on, especially now that the story, and I've gotten so much feedback from issue 1 that had come out, and certain things that certain folks wanted to see in it, things that they want to see grow. Maybe there was a particular artistic style that I was looking at previously, but now I'm seeing it as, hey, maybe I can grow or make this into something that's even bigger and better. So yeah. So then, as far as that creative process for that, as you know, writing isn't always easy, especially
Not at all. Not at all.
especially when you're trying to put together a well-crafted story that follows something and that makes sense to your audience and to uh, whatever demographic you're targeting, and also to make sure that your story makes sense. So no easy task, but I've always been up to the challenge, and I'm not going to slow down now. So
Yeah, how long have you been working on that on Brute?
So
Brute, on Treble.
so this one, the concept started years ago. I think I started that concept in 2010. So the concept 2010. Then I wrote the first draft I finished the first draft in 2018, the beginning of 2018. Then polished the draft at the end of 2018 into January 2019.
Okay.
Was the finalized version, was January 2019. So it took 10 years.
No, I feel you. I feel you.
You know what I mean?
We dropped the first issue of Intrepid 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel you.
Exactly. Yeah. So it took
takes a
10
while.
years to really get it right. Because like I had the idea, like I spawned the idea a decade ago. But of course that's exactly what it was. It was an idea. It wasn't flushed out. Like I didn't know where I wanted these characters, where I wanted anything to go, and I wasn't sure where I wanted anything to happen. But through the years and through several other writing projects that failed,
You gotta break some eggs, man.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, a bunch of them that went south. I was able to gain experiences from that and see how the story I wanted to be crafted and how I wanted to develop the characters, which of course was the biggest, which for me was the biggest thing, because if these aren't characters that anybody cares about, nobody will care to read it.
Exactly.
That's the bottom line. Nobody's going to care to read it if these characters aren't like, oh man, I get why he's doing X, Y, Z, or why he's acting this way, or if I don't understand why this is happening. So like character development was like, that took the longest, because like crafting the story of like where I wanted things to go though, has its challenges, it was a lot easier than building all these individual personalities of different characters and making them feel alive.
Okay. All right. Good. Good. Now, say off. Um, Along with that, you want to plug your Kickstarter?
Oh, yeah. So
Do that.
March 9th, kicking off my first Kickstarter for Treble, I can't even talk right. Treble, the Rhythm
Take your
Within,
time.
Part 2. It's going to be kicking off March 9th.
Okay.
You can find it on Kickstarter /DaBrute. It's going to be great. It's going to have 5 levels of rewards.
Good. Good.
It's going to have 5 levels of it. Check them out. I think they're awesome rewards. I think everyone really enjoy them, and especially those that are into like collectible style things.
Okay.
It's gonna be like the level 5 is gonna be something exactly up their alley.
Okay. Good. And I'm gonna be pimping for you too, so don't worry about it.
Appreciate it.
All right. Second question: what inspires you to create?
Ooh, now that's a good question. Well, my inspiration comes from a lot of different directions. I'm gonna start with the negative first.
Sure.
What inspires me to create, even more so than the positive ones, is seeing how much bad writing is being pushed today. There's so much bad writing for it doesn't even matter the genre. It could be romantic comedy, an action movie, a superhero film, or superhero writing. Like it, all in all, a lot of it, I'll say in the last decade, has been hard to swallow. A lot of it's been hard to swallow, and I always used to find myself going to the movies or reading a novel, and I find myself, I'm like, this is not good. I'm like, it's not good. I'm like, this is not good.
I can sympathize.
Yeah, like this is not good. Like how are people eating this up? I mean, this is awful. That doesn't make sense. This isn't like, of course, you always have to suspend your disbelief in some aspects. Of course, it's fantasy, but then there's, start, rising action, climax, falling action, ending. It's missing. It's missing. It's just like, check this out. Check that out. And I'm like, wait, why'd that happen? Because it did. I'm like, hang on. So you want me to be immersed in your world, but you're not going to draw me in. You want me to just show up. And I always felt that was cheap and cheesy, and not even good cheese, not like a 80s, 90s cartoon cheesy. I'm talking like it's cheap. It's cheap. And that was a main motivation for me to actually really write something good that people can look and be like, hey, there's something happening here. This means something. I can follow something. So that was that one. That's that aspect. Now, as far as the positives go, my inspiration comes from a lot of different things. 80s, 90s culture, cartoons. A matter of fact, I'm rewatching Spider-Man the animated series now.
Oh, 90s.
Yeah. I'm rewatching it now. I'm rewatching it, and I'm still amazed by it because of how well the stories are written. I just finished watching X-Men the animated series again.
Yeah.
So I finished binging that. Yeah, I'm back binging that. And the stories are so rich and so colorful, and like every character is drawn out. Nothing feels rushed. And it feels like back, especially during that time period, you had to have something good, or no one was gonna stick around. It wasn't just and even the themes that was covered in those shows, like they covered racism and discrimination and different mental disorders. They tackled heavy subjects in these quote unquote kid shows.
I remember that X-Men animated series with a Nightcrawler, and it was doing like religion, man.
Yeah,
I was like, what?
Exactly.
Killed me,
like he was a Catholic, and he was a Catholic, and yet he looked like a demon. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And it was insane. And how everybody that looked normal wanted to kill him, who were supposed to be Christians and Catholics as well. So it's like,
Yeah,
look
my
at
man Wolverine going to church, man.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
what?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was some good writing. It was good writing.
Exactly. Logan, I will pray for your soul.
That was deep, yo. That was
Yeah.
deep.
That was heavy.
Yeah.
And that's like that's where I got my motivations from, of seeing how in depth this writing was 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And I wanted to harness that again. I wanted to feel that again, of how the depth. I wanted the depth of what it was then, which very rarely happens now. Um, Another motivation, as far as like my writing style, it came from pretty much two comic series that I liked, and one is extremely overrated. The two that I draw inspiration from was the Scott Pilgrim versus the World
Okay. I love
comic
that one.
series. I like the movie too, but the comic series itself was fantastic.
Mhm.
And seeing how like how every character was their own thing. They had their own quirks, but at the same time, it wasn't over the top. You can follow like how the powers work. Like everything flowed really well. As far as episodical, how I write like this series in particular, I get it from the a short run Marvel comic called Sentinel,
Mm.
which was completely underrated. It was done by
I didn't catch that one.
yeah, it was done by Udon,
Mhm.
Udon Arts and like, I think they did the whole thing. I think they did the art and the writing. I think they contracted somebody to do the writing. But it was pretty much like the typical like kid that, you know, didn't fit in and whatever the case may be. His family was very poor, and they worked out of they owned a junkyard
Mhm.
and everything. So we're following like this teenage kid. You see that he has a crush on this girl that's not really into him. He has a group of friends that are all outcasts. He has bullies, all this stuff. But then when we get to the end of the first issue, we notice that he has these he has a mechanical mind, and he can build anything because he lives in the scrapyard, and he builds like battle bots that, well, this was a different time, but battle bots that
Mhm.
him and his brother would fight them and all this stuff. But then out of nowhere, his battle bot loses control and then goes into the junkyard somewhere, and he can't catch up with it. And he doesn't find it. So he's like, well, I guess I'll look for it in the morning. So he goes back home, but then then the next panel's pan, there is literally a broken down Sentinel that the X-Men had defeated that
Mm.
was in the scrapyard the whole time. And it
Mm.
summoned the battle bot because it had a memory chip in it, took control of it to come and repair it. And that's how the first issue ends. And
What year was this?
this was 2003,
Man, I
I want to
missed that.
say. 2003, and like the whole series builds from that point forward. Because first it feels like, oh, it's just a teenage story, but then it's like, whoa, that's a Sentinel.
Mm.
What is going on? And so then, like, as it builds on, he finds it. Then he starts repairing the Sentinel himself. Like, it gets out of control,
I
and
had to go
it's
back and get on
yeah, like
that.
it's great, and but how the issues were broken down, how those parts were like, hey, we're building something, we're understanding these characters, we understand the world, like the
Mhm.
world building of how that series went is exactly. I said, this is what I want to do.
Mm.
Because like the whole issue is all about this world building, world building, world building. Then, bam, like, whoa, what was that?
Okay.
And so, like, right, so when the next issue comes, you're like, whoa, I gotta figure out what that was a Sentinel. What happened? What's going on? So
Mhm.
then the next issue, and it just builds on it, builds on it, builds on until we get to some havoc and some crazy and some nonsense, and then things get out of control. And that's exactly the way that I wanted it built. The
Okay.
whole idea of a huge world building, and you're into these characters, and then there's a out of water moment that happens. You're like, yo, what's gonna happen next?
Uh-huh.
What's happening? Whoa, you gotta give me more. And that's the way, that was the strategy behind it.
I felt that on the end of the first issue of on the end of your first issue.
Yes. Yeah, that was the idea.
Yeah,
That was the idea, because like the whole time it's like, hey, we're getting to know Zamir, we're getting to know his friend Antonio, we're getting to know his mom, we're meeting all these characters, but then there's a hint of conspiracy going on.
Okay.
There's news articles about like, yo, there's something going on, people are getting sick, what's really happening. And then at the end of the issue, we go bam, like, oh snap, it's happening.
Right.
And it's like, oh, whoa, this just got serious. Like, what's happening now? What's happening now? And then we move on to the next issue.
I'm gonna leave a link to Spinwhiz where you can pick up TREBLE.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
On this, yeah, so that people can get into it. But that's cool. That's cool. Your next question: what is your favorite part of the creative process?
Ooh, I think my favorite part of creative process is that's a good one. I think it's fan reactions.
Ah, okay.
I think fan reactions and other, or critic reactions, either way. I like reactions. I love seeing the pulse of what people are thinking and feeling on what I'm doing or what I'm putting out or what I'm in the midst of creating. Like if I'm putting out concept art or like, hey, what do you think about this cover? Or, hey, what do you think about this idea? And how people respond to, like, hey, I really like this concept. Hey, this reminds me of X. Hey, this reminds me of Y. Like stuff like that. And like people can make connections to it. I'm like, okay, this is stuff that people are into. And I love feedback. I like positive or negative. I love feedback because if I'm bad at it, I would like to know if there's, you know what I mean? Like if there's something I can do better, I want to know. And like, especially, well, I'll give you this, modern day, like social media, they'll tell you the truth.
Oh, they'll crush you. They'll find that out much to my detriment. They will crush you the minute they get this chance, because negative feedback gets hits.
It does.
That's the sad truth of it.
It does.
And if somebody can get at you, they'll do it, man. Just for the clicks, man.
Yeah, they won't hesitate. So like I feed off of that. Like whether you love me or you hate me. Matter of fact, I'll give you an example. I had a Canadian comic reviewer actually picked up my issue, and he's like, I think his YouTube channel is Comic University.
Okay.
And he is basically one of the toughest comic critics on YouTube. Like he hates everything. Everything. Like I can hand him a Frank Miller novel right now, and he'll just put it through a paper shredder. He's like, this is garbage, this is trash. So he excoriated me for about 20 minutes. About 20 minutes. So he's like, oh, it's well written, but I don't like the way this shading is, or look, the direction this is going. But then like, so 20 minutes, he's going in like, oh, I don't like the way the paper feels. I mean, he's going in. But at the end, he says, this is actually pretty good. And that's how I'm like, got you.
Okay.
Got you. And that's what it was. Like, so like he was one of the toughest dudes. Like everybody that's gone through, like has sent something his way, it has gone through the paper shredder. Like he kills stuff. Yeah. So I mean, so like he killed me because he's that guy. But he was like, but this is actually good. I was like, and then he even said, I'm actually looking forward to reading the second one. I'm like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, so like feedback and fan reaction or non-fan reaction, that's the best part of the creative process for me.
Okay. Fourth question. Biggest influence on you as a creator?
Ooh, biggest influence. Ooh. Man, that's a good one. Life. I'm gonna say life in general. Life experiences that have been shared with me by other people. I think life is the greatest comic ever written.
That's profound, dude.
It's the greatest comic ever written.
That's profound.
Like if you want drama, you want twists, you want turns, You want thought-provoking things to happen? Just walk outside.
Mm. That's real.
Just walk outside.
That's real.
It's gonna happen. Your life is either gonna be an action movie, a drama, some are romantic comedies, and some are straight up tragedies.
Mm.
Walk outside. And like a couple of life experiences that really help my creative process is loss. You
Mm.
know, loss. Like when things are going right and you're winning, you don't really have to be creative. You can just coast.
Yeah.
Just coast. You can be like, oh, well, that worked.
Another win.
Yeah, another win. Got it. You know what I mean? But when you're knocked to the ground and your knees are got scrapes and scratches and dust and dirt and your jaw's jacked up, you're gonna be down there saying, I gotta think of something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it comes from. It comes from like the idea of there's loss, there's pain, there's frustration. That is what creates some of the most creative things in the history. Because when you're winning, you're not trying to create anything because you're already winning.
Mm.
But like one life experience that I had, which really got me going creatively years ago, um, it was during it wasn't even writing related. I was in the midst of um, I was doing my certification test for computer tech stuff, doing a
Mm-hmm.
certification test, and I knew all the answers. I knew all the answers. I've been in the game a long time. I absolutely failed.
Mm.
I didn't fail because I didn't know the answers. I failed because I didn't think of the answers the way they were written.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's where I failed because they wrote it as in, like for instance, they will write it as computers turned. Somebody calls you and says their computer's off. What do you do? A, tell them to press the power button. B, check to see if it's unplugged. C, go over there and do something. Or D, all of the above. All these answers are right.
Mm-hmm.
All of them
So
are
which one are you supposed to choose?
right. All of them are right. So I'm like, okay, D, all of the above. Duh, wrong. That's not right.
Yeah, that's why I hate tests, man.
Yep. The
That's
answer,
why I hate tests.
exactly. The answer was A. Tell them to press the power button. But then my brain was like, wouldn't they have already tried that?
Yeah.
That's where my brain went. My brain went, that's a no-brainer. Of course you press the power button. Let's move on with our day. But the test is written for you to have the point of view or creative point of view of a dummy.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I'm like, I've got to start thinking not like myself, but like someone else.
Yeah.
Then I start looking at things as a perspective. If I was this guy and my computer didn't turn on, first thing I'm going to do, if I'm not smart, is call somebody. Even though the smart thing to do is press the button.
True.
But the idea of the creative process of trying to look through things from the lenses of somebody else
Mm-hmm.
and be able to create scenarios or create anything that is beyond just my regular experiences, because usually my own experience will have the right answer for me,
Mm-hmm.
but not the universal answer for everybody.
That's an interesting take, man. Like I said again, that's why I hate tests. But
yeah, you ain't the only one.
Hey, all right. Here's a fifth question.
Okay, fifth question.
What gets you out of a creative funk?
Ooh, man, gets me out of
What
a
can
creative
pull
funk.
you out?
Ooh, when I'm in the depths of despair.
Yeah, or writer's block, or whatever they call it.
Yeah, writer's block.
Mm.
What gets me out of it? Okay, two things. Two things will get me out of that creative block. One, when I'm feeling that way, I have to take a step back and stop everything I'm doing.
Okay.
And then I pop in 2008, The Dark Knight,
Mm.
watch it all the way through, meditate on what I watched, even though I've seen that movie about 300 times.
Mm.
I step back and I watch it because, in my personal opinion, it's one of the most well written movies I've ever seen.
Okay.
And I look at it not in a way of a creative mastermind of it. I look at it as a character study.
Mm.
And it allows me to kind of reset my brain to think of not like, oh, the all the juices are flowing, but to think of this is a real person that I'm watching on the screens.
Mm.
Someone was able to take their selves and create something and become someone else for a character on this screen. Watching the performances of namely Heath Ledger and Christian Bale, I guess I'll throw him in there too.
Wow. Wow.
I guess I'll
Okay.
throw him in there.
I guess, yeah.
And say he was there.
Yes.
So and I watch it, and then I follow, and then like even though I know the movie backwards and forward, every time I watch that movie, I get something new from it every time.
Hmm.
So once that, because that I know that epiphany is gonna come somewhere in the film, maybe an hour and a half into the film, an epiphany is gonna come because my brain is gonna be putting these pieces together from this film, and then it's going to equate to what I was trying to put together beforehand. And then I'm gonna be like, that's it. That's it. That's it. That's it.
The light goes back on. Okay, there you go.
And then I'm back on it. So yeah, so like that movie helps me get out of the funk. And another thing that helps me get out of it is remembering why I do this.
Hmm.
Like just stepping back and being like, hey, why'd you start doing this? You knew it was going to be long. You knew it was going to be hard. You knew there was going to be setbacks. You knew you're going to fall on your face a bunch of times. You knew this. Why did you start this? So then I have to go back and more or less, let's just keep it as easy as I can. Let's say I'm Super Saiyan 3 out this joint. I got to go back to Kaioken for a minute.
There you go. Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
Just
Just go back for a minute and be like, why? How did I get here? Oh, let's go back to the bases. And then I go back there and just try to remind myself of why am I here? Why am I writing this? And then usually it's the same reasons. It's I wanted to create something unique. I wanted to create something that people can get behind. I wanted to create a story that people will be talking about. I want to create something that means something not only to myself but to the creative genre in general. Because like we said before, it's lacking. It's lacking.
Yeah.
And when it lacks this much, people they not only do they lower their expectations, but they dumb themselves down. They
Yeah.
dumb themselves down, and they find that creative brilliance is offensive because they've trained themselves that they just want vanilla ice cream and pudding, and but then when somebody puts a full steak in front of them, they're like, wait a minute, this is hard to chew. I don't get it. I don't get it. This is terrifying. So yeah, so I put myself back in that creative baby stage, as it were, and so I could just kind of reboot myself.
Okay. Good. Good. Final question, the bonus question.
All right, bonus.
Inspiration or perspiration?
Ooh.
Inspiration or craftsmanship? Which one do you lean on the most?
Ooh. Wow. Now that's a bonus question. Ooh. I'm going to go with craftsmanship.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with excuse me. I'm gonna go with craftsmanship. because inspiration can change.
Yeah.
Inspiration can change because what inspired me 10 years ago is not the same thing that inspires me today.
True.
In some aspects, certain, there could be a root of something that inspired me, but I found something new about it now than I did back then. So inspiration can change, and when inspiration changes, vision changes as well.
True.
But craftsmanship is something that, I guess I could use the same word in a sentence. It's something that's you craft it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a skill. It's a skill, and when it comes to a skill doesn't go away. Your efficiency can change, but a skill doesn't go away. Like if I find a carpenter right now, a carpenter didn't wake up a carpenter. He could have been inspired to be a carpenter years ago, but despite his inspiration, he acted upon it and built something with his hands, trained himself with his hands in order to make a chair or a table or something like that. And I can tell him right now, like let's say he stopped using wood for 10 years. Then I come to him and say, hey, I need you to make me a chair. He'll have some rust on him, but he's going to make me a chair.
Yeah.
He's going to make me a chair. So when it comes to craftsmanship, I believe it is more, I mean, by a notch more, it's a tad bit more important than inspiration, because there's plenty of people that are inspired but don't do anything with it. They don't craft anything with their inspiration. So I love it. Inspiration is very important, but that action that you take in order to take your inspiration and to mold it into something, that's the key.
That's one that I juggle with a lot, and I would tend to agree with you because I can't count on being inspired.
That's true.
But my skill that I've developed is going to be there. So if it's maybe the product might not come off as being like terribly inspired, you say, oh, that's not the new wheel, you know, or whatever. But if you do it right, you'd be like, wow, that's pretty good. You know, it was well crafted, even if it's not the most original thing that ever came out. But when you get inspired and you come up with that original thing, that's great. But you can't manufacture inspiration. But craftsmanship, man, you can just do it, man, because you get better. You know,
that's true.
So yeah, that's about like asking people that question and see what they come up with.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough one to think about. It's a tough one to think about because sometimes you don't really think about the skill that it takes to be creative.
Yeah.
You know, a man once told me, he asked me, he said, Andre, would you rather be good or would you rather be lucky? And I stopped and thought about it. I'm like, I said, what would you rather be? He said, he told me that he'd rather be lucky. And he said, and I said, why would you rather be lucky? He's like, well, because you can be good and still not achieve anything. I was like, I said, that's true. Wow. That's true. I said, but if you're good at something, is that not an achievement?
Good comeback.
Is that not an achievement? A lucky person just has things fall into their laps, but they don't care about what happened. They just so happen to be sitting there. If I sit on a corner and a dollar flies out somebody's window, I'm a lucky guy. But can I go and make $1 now?
Yeah.
No, you're just gonna sit, just wait, hope and pray that you keep getting lucky, or do you craft something and become good?
Well said. All right, bro, that's it. We got through it. The 5 creative questions in the creative corner.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, appreciate you coming through, man.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
And I'm gonna be plugging for you on the on your Kickstarter, and to plug myself. Currently, C3 Comics has a Kickstarter going.
Yeah, you guys are on a roll.
Yeah, for Volume 1 of Intrepid. I'm gonna put a link with this video, so if anybody, you can come on, check it out, pick up some swag and get your rewards and all that good stuff.
That's dope.
So hey, I'm gonna have you back on again, man.
Yeah, anytime.
We gotta do movie reviews and other stuff too.
Oh
man.
Lord Jesus.
Get into comics and all of that stuff, man.
Cool. No, that'll be dope.
All right, man. Appreciate it, man.
Absolutely.
And to everybody out there, stay loose.